Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel where you can see the world differently. Today we discuss the so-called protection fee Donald Trump wants Taiwan to pay for America's protection. On October 30, 2024, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson implied if Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump won the election on November 5, the U.S. would discard Taiwan, as Donald Trump would continue to pursue an America First policy. We have said many times that Taiwan is never America's core interest. It is not surprising that the U.S. discards the island. In July 2024, Donald Trump said Taiwan should pay for its defense. Several days ago, he appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, criticizing the U.S. CHIPS Act and threatening to impose tariffs on chips from Taiwan if he becomes the U.S. president again. You know, Taiwan, they stole our chip business. And they want protection. Trump's comments in the episode were released on October 26, 2024. Donald Trump's comments on Taiwan stealing U.S. semiconductor business worried Taiwan's politicians. The island's premier, Cho Yung-tai, disagreed with Donald Trump, asserting that Taiwan developed its semiconductor industry on its own and made itself into a world leader. In the past several years, the U.S. has constantly pushed Taiwan and South Korea to move their semiconductor facilities to the U.S. Indeed, the U.S. does not possess enough engineers and skilled workers to revive its semiconductor industry. Still, it is trying to reduce its dependence on Taiwan's chips for fear that China's mainland may take over the island shortly. Half a year ago, ASML shipped its first advanced EUV machine, high-NA EUV, to Intel's Oregon factory, and all its 2024 stock went to the U.S. giant. Undoubtedly, the United States is preparing to abandon Taiwan, although it vows to defend the island's so-called democracy. Once America's local semiconductor industry can replace Taiwan's TSMC, the U.S. will expect China's mainland to recover the island for its hidden agenda. For decades, if not for centuries, the U.S. has been instigating wars and causing internal havoc in other countries for its political and economic gains. A civil war across the Taiwan Strait can benefit the U.S., which explains why American politicians constantly encourage Taiwan's DPP authorities to provoke Beijing by selling weapons to the island. Even when Joe Biden is retiring, he approved $2 billion worth of arms sales to Taiwan at the end of October 2024. Trump, if elected, will not defend Taiwan, and that is none of his business. He said that Taiwan is too far away from the U.S. and too close to China, meaning it is not feasible for the U.S. to defend the island even if it is willing to do so. He asserted that if China's mainland attacks Taiwan, he will impose 200% tariffs on Chinese products, which demonstrates he is still a businessman. However, he is greedier than a warmonger and is willing to sacrifice 23 million Taiwanese people. When he was in power, Donald Trump approved around $18.3 billion worth of arms sales to Taiwan, much higher than Joe Biden's $10.5 billion. Even though Taiwan has emptied its pockets to buy America's ages-old weapons, Donald Trump still thinks the island should pay more to get protected. Who will protect Taiwan if Beijing decides to take it over by force? Nobody. If any, Donald Trump will be the last one, whether he becomes the president again or not. As for Harris, even if she defeats Donald Trump, replacing her boss, she will not care more about Taiwan than her rival. She did not even give a dime to India after millions of Indians celebrated her becoming the first U.S. vice president of Indian origin. She is an American and works for a handful of Americans who shove money in her pockets. The same is true with Donald Trump and any future U.S. presidents, whether Democratic or Republican. Taiwanese politicians also know it. Not long ago, Alexander Tarai-Yui, Taiwan's deputy representative to the U.S., told Fox News in an interview that Taiwanese people are readying themselves for war if a cross-strait conflict breaks out, and he hoped not to need assistance from the U.S. The problem is, how many Taiwanese people are ready for war when Taiwan's strawberry soldiers are not ready? Moreover, even if Taiwan seeks help from the United States, what kind of help can it get? The U.S. Congress may pass one bill a day to sanction Beijing, and the White House will issue statements showing its concerns. As for the Pentagon, it will deploy its aircraft carriers as far away from the region to take care of other areas' safety and navigation freedom, like in the Red Sea. Of course, if Donald Trump steps into office again, he may impose 200% tariffs on Chinese imports to make Americans poorer again and again. Small businesses in the United States selling necessities, from bikes to hangers, are more nervous than their Chinese suppliers about another cost hike they will have to pass on to customers. Peterson Institute for International Economics published an article on August 21, 2024, discussing the impact of Trump's new tariff proposals on a typical American household, concluding that an extra burden of $2,600 a year will be the aftermath of Trump's further tariff hike. The article is based on a 60% tariff on Chinese imports to get the Trump tax burden on the average American household. If Trump wants to impose a 200% tariff on Chinese imports, every year, U.S. consumers will pay around $8,000 extra. It means Donald Trump will punish U.S. consumers again if he wins the election and Beijing reunites with Taiwan by force during his new term. Can Donald Trump win the election and become America's first criminal leader? The chance is high, as his rival, Kamala Harris, is frequently accused of not knowing how to manage the country but laughing all day. If he defeats Harris, Donald Trump will continue his American First policy and exert more pressure on allies, which he phrases as free riders, to pay more for their defense. He forced Japan and South Korea to pay more protection fees under his presidency. Even though Japan increased its hosting cost for U.S. military bases in 2022, the U.S. will withdraw 9,000 Marines from Okinawa, which is close to Taiwan, scheduled in 2024. Japan is paying more to get less. If elected again, Donald Trump will pressure Japan again to increase its military expenses. The same thing will happen to Taiwan, and the U.S. will try to squeeze every penny out of Taiwan's pockets with its excessively priced Granny-class weapons. On October 25, Donald Trump repeated his threats to increase tariffs on chips from the island and asked Taiwan for more protection fees for America's military protection. His words are straightforward: "You know the mob makes you pay money, right? The U.S. is the mob and it robs. How can Taiwan's politicians believe and expect a robber to come and protect the island?" Joe Biden does not fight the Russians for Ukraine. His successor, be it Harris or Trump, will not fight the Chinese mainlanders for Taiwan, which even a baby born yesterday knows. Now comes the question: are Taiwan's politicians willing to pay for an illusion that U.S. soldiers will fly from the Red Sea to rescue them? Even if they agree to pay and the Pentagon is happy with the money received, the Chinese military will only allow those supermen in Hollywood movies to enter the island. China's mainland has a lot of cards to play with the United States. Suppose Beijing strictly sanctions America's military-industrial companies and prohibits them from acquiring China's rare earth minerals and other components. In that case, the U.S. military can hardly get enough arms manufactured for itself and its allies, let alone shipped to Taiwan. Moreover, it takes years or even decades for the U.S. to clear its backlog. On April 30, 2024, U.S. lawmakers Don Bacon, Mark Alford, and Rich McCormick questioned the U.S. Defense Secretary about the $19 billion backlog of weapons to Taiwan at a House Armed Services Committee hearing. The questioning proved useless, as the backlog increased to over $20 billion in September 2024. As Joe Biden added $2 billion worth of new arms sales to the island in late October, the backlog increased again to $22 billion. The delay in the shipment of weapons to Taiwan is partially because of America's insufficient capacity, but in our opinion, another reason is more convincing. The U.S. only provides oral support to the island, meaning the so-called help is merely lip service. The U.S. Congress lawmakers do not have to fight the Chinese troops on the battlefield, so they can say whatever they like at Capitol Hill and pass nonsensical bills every day. The U.S. military is different. It knows it is dangerous to challenge a country with hypersonic missiles capable of threatening America's mainland with nuclear warheads. Worst of all, the battlefield will be at the rival's doorstep, but thousands of miles away from the United States. In the past 6 months, no U.S. aircraft carriers have been deployed in the Western Pacific, meaning the U.S. Navy can no longer maintain a global presence. Moreover, even if the U.S. deploys its craft carriers in the region, it will make little difference. A Houthi anti-ship missile detonated 200 meters away from the USS Eisenhower aircraft carrier 2 weeks ago, raising global concerns. If a Houthis missile, seemingly handmade with hammers and chisels, can pose a threat to a U.S. aircraft carrier, Beijing's hypersonic missiles from the land, air and underwater can hardly miss the targets. Taiwan should not expect any protection from the U.S. The best scenario is Washington might send some zombies to the island as Halloween is over. Thanks for watching our videos, and please subscribe to our channel if you have not done that so you will not miss our uploads every day. Like, forward and share our videos with your friends, helping DFTW become a club with 1 million subscribers. Thanks again.